The Rock vs Hollywood Hogan at WrestleMania 18 still epitomizes the dream match, with fans listing it as one of professional wrestling's most iconic matches. However, the same time Hogan was in the WWF, he never faced Attitude Era superstar Stone Cold Steve Austin in singles competition. Join us now as Wrestlelamia reveals why Hogan vs Austin never happened. Every good poker player knows the difference between winning and winning big. A skilled player will maximize their winnings, whereas an inferior player may fail to see the big picture, thus the term leaving money on the table. Likewise, good wrestling promoters know how to book big angles and milk them for all they're worth without burning out the fans. Well, sometimes. So why did the WWE fail to put Hulk Hogan up against Stone Cold Steve Austin? According to former WWE creative guru Bruce Pritchard, the WWE was intent on pitting Hogan against Austin. Well, I can tell you from my vantage point, and my discussions were, where are we going to go? Because the match was Austin and Hulk, or Rock and Hulk? However, Pritchard argues the long-term plan was to build to Hogan vs Austin. I think that everyone agreed that Austin and Hulk were the bigger match that we had to get to, so the feeling was, why not give it to them first? Let's build it some more. That may have been the case, but rumours continued to persist that Hogan vs Rock was the second choice for the Hulkster's WrestleMania return. If so, why didn't the match happen? In 2012, Austin was asked why he never wrestled Hogan in the WWF, replying, "I don't think I just wanted to ever wrestle the guy, I guess." The answer did nothing to settle the question, instead leading to more speculation as to why. When fans hear the stories of Austin's run in WCW and rumoured conflict with Hulk Hogan, it's easy to believe Austin might have felt slighted by Hogan. Wrestling lore has it that Austin was promised a run with Hogan during both wrestlers' time in WCW, but the program was canned. One story is that Eric Bischoff nixed it, while others claim the Hulkster felt Austin wasn't at his level. When you add in Austin's comments during his brief stay in ECW, it's easy to see why fans believe Austin drove the karma bus over Hogan by refusing to work with him at WrestleMania 18. During a lengthy promo in ECW, Austin mocked Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Eric Bischoff, and Hulk Hogan for holding him back, including direct remarks concerning a program he suggested with Hogan. Subsequently, when Austin was on top in the WWF and Hogan stepped in, the shoe was on the other foot, leaving Austin with the power to refuse to work with Hogan. But over the last few years, there's been more discussion of why the match never happened. Although it should be noted Austin did team up with The Rock in a handicap match against Hogan, Hall and Nash during a March 2002 episode of Raw. Some of this discussion has clouded the possible causes of why the match never happened. During an episode of Jim Ross's podcast The Ross Report, Austin clarified why he didn't want to work with Hogan at WrestleMania 18. "Physically and mentally where I was at, I could go. I think Hogan probably would have been a step or two behind that. That wasn't acceptable to me, and I didn't want to slow myself down. I say that with all due respect to Hulk Hogan because he's had a hellacious run. That was my thought process back in the day. I didn't think we could deliver." There's also been talk of Austin refusing to do the match with Hogan because he did not want to put Hogan over, feeling Hogan wouldn't return the favour. But Bruce Pritchard disagrees. There may have been discussions where one wasn't going to put the other over, but that was just gesturing and positioning. Ultimately, NWO member Scott Hall battled Stone Cold Steve Austin at Mania 18. Was there any bad blood because Hall knew he was second choice to face Austin? In a 2016 interview, Hall clarified, "Austin felt like he should have been wrestling Hulk Hogan, and it would have been fine with me. I would have certainly wrestled The Rock, and I would have been cool with that. But I didn't make those decisions. Vince McMahon did. Vince made the decision to have The Rock wrestle Hulk, and he looked at me and Kev, and he goes, 'I'll have one of you, probably Scott, wrestle Steve with the other guy on the outside.' His remarks support the idea Austin's mind wasn't in the right place, further complicating the possible reasons behind Austin's refusal to work against Hogan. However, around 2005, another opportunity seemed to arise where the two might finally meet. Although the match never took place at WrestleManias 18 or 19, there were hints it might still take place. A few years later, Hulk Hogan indirectly challenged Austin during the Hulkster's induction into the WWE's 2005 Hall of Fame class. As the fans chanted one more match, Hogan seemed to be looking at Austin. Any doubts were lifted at the 3rd October 2005 Raw Homecoming show, where Hogan asked the fans what would all these Hulkamaniacs do if Hulk Hogan climbed in the ring with the rattlesnake Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin followed up at the 2006 Hall of Fame ceremony, where he inducted Bret the Hitman Hart, commenting to the fans who were chanting both Hogan and Austin's names, "I was going through my bag in the back, and I found a can of whoop-ass with Hulk Hogan's name on it." Unfortunately, the match again failed to materialize, leaving fans to wonder why. In recent interviews, Austin has clarified things both on the original WrestleMania matches and possible later ones. During an episode of his podcast, Austin fielded a question from callers, asking who his dream opponent would be. Austin replied, "I gotta say Hulk Hogan, because one of the biggest draws in the history of the business. Everybody thought that match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan should have happened a couple of years back, and never did. Just for whatever reason, I didn't feel like stepping back in the ring. I think Hogan was ready to go, but I wasn't, and so I never got a chance to wrestle that guy. And it would have been fun to be in the ring with him, because I was watching an old match on YouTube between Paul Orndorff and Hulk Hogan and watched how Hulk Hogan was down there on the mat and he was just selling his ass off. Paul Orndorff was just kicking the snot out of him, and then finally, after all this heat, started making that trademark comeback. He started firing up that comeback. The people started going crazy, and I realized this guy wasn't born on top. He worked his tail off to get to the top. So I'd say Hulk Hogan right off Jump Street. Looking at the big picture, there's ample evidence that Steve Austin had misgivings about wrestling Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18, arguably a combination of resentment over past treatment and perhaps concern Hogan couldn't hang with him. Whichever the reason, Austin seems disappointed in hindsight the match never happened. I guarantee you, if my head had been at a little different place, then by all rights, a match should have happened. Well guys, there you have it. The reason why Hulk Hogan and Austin never happened. Do you think these two could have pulled off a match as good as Hogan vs The Rock? Let us know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.